I just don't think it's going to work out, Elliot, Mia said, her voice a soft melody that seemed out of place in the bustling cafe. Her words hit him like a cold, hard reboot, unexpected and jarring. The warmth of their shared laughter and the comfort of their familiar routines vanished in an instant, leaving a void that the aroma of freshly ground coffee couldn't fill. Elliot felt the weight of the world crushing down on him, the very air in the room thick with unspoken truths. Differences? He echoed, trying to process the sudden shift. What do you mean by that, Mia? His voice was steady, but he could feel the cracks forming, threatening to shatter the facade of calm he'd built over their time together. Mia fidgeted with her hands, avoiding his gaze. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling beneath her sweater, and finally spoke. I don't know. It's just, things feel different lately. We've grown apart, I guess. Elliot's heart sank. The cafe's chatter grew distant as he searched her eyes for some sign of regret, some hint that this was a mistake. But all he found was a sad resolve that mirrored his own. He knew that beneath her evasive words, Mia was trying to spare his feelings. Maybe we need to talk about those differences, he offered, desperation creeping into his voice. We can work on it, right? Mia's eyes searched the room, as if the answers might be scribbled on a forgotten napkin. I've been thinking about this for a while, she said, finally meeting his gaze. It's not just one thing, it's a lot of things. Elliot felt a knot tighten in his stomach. All their shared jokes, the quiet nights in watching movies, the comfort of her head on his shoulder, it all felt like it was slipping away. He knew he couldn't force her to stay, but he had to understand. Could you tell me what some of those things are? He asked, his voice cracking slightly. Mia paused, her eyes misting over. She took another deep breath and spoke. It's not just the little things, Elliot. It's like, I don't know who you are anymore. You're always at work, or on your laptop, or you just seem so distant. She paused again, her voice barely a whisper. I need someone who's present. The cafe's ambience grew louder as the silence between them stretched. Elliot felt a pang of guilt. He had been working long hours at the tech startup, trying to impress his new colleagues, but it had taken a toll on their relationship. He'd been so focused on his job that he'd neglected the woman who'd been by his side since college. Mia, he began, I had no idea you felt this way. His hand reached for hers, but she kept her arms folded tightly across her chest. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Her eyes searched his, looking for sincerity or perhaps just for the Elliot she used to know. It's not just about the time, Elliot, she said softly. It's about us connecting. We used to share everything, our hopes, our fears, even the silliest jokes. Now it's just, I don't know. The sadness in her voice was a punch to the gut, but he knew he had to try. I'll be better, I'll make more of an effort. His hand reached out again, and this time, she let it enfold hers, though her grip remained tentative. Days later, the echoes of their conversation still lingered as Elliot found himself in a quiet corner of the university library, surrounded by the familiar scent of old books and the soft hum of students typing away on their keyboards. It was there that he stumbled upon a revelation that shook him to his core. He'd bumped into Rachel, a mutual friend from their alma mater, and she'd slipped him the news. Mia's mother, Catherine, had been working behind the scenes, sowing doubt and dissent. Kathy said some things, man, Rachel had whispered, her voice low with concern. Things that I don't think Mia wanted me to tell you, but I thought you should know. She said you were bad for her, that Mia could do better. The words hung in the air, a heavy fog that obscured the path ahead. Elliot couldn't believe it. Catherine had always been cool towards him, but he'd never thought it was more than just a typical mother's protective instincts. He replayed their one meeting in his mind, her sharp eyes scrutinizing his jeans and t-shirt, the way she'd questioned his job security at the tech startup. He'd shrugged it off, thinking it was just her way of sizing him up. But now, the doubt began to creep in. Had he misread the whole situation? He thought back to all the times he and Mia had gone out of their way to split every bill, down to the last cent. It was a testament to their belief in equality, a principle they held dear. They'd even joked about it, calling it their financial plan. But now, he wondered if it was all just a facade, a way to appease Catherine without truly committing to the traditional roles she expected of them. Elliot's thoughts swirled around their shared beliefs. They'd spent hours debating the intricacies of faith, their discussions weaving through the complexities of code and theology. They'd found common ground in their desire to understand the world and each other, but now it felt like that ground was shifting beneath him. Had he been too busy chasing his dreams to realize that he was also losing her? Their financial plan had been a source of pride for both of them. It was more than just splitting bills, it was a declaration of their commitment to equality, a silent protest against societal norms that often left one partner bearing the brunt of financial burdens. They'd laughed about it, turning it into a game to see who could spot the cheapest item on the menu or find the best deal on a weekend trip. But now, he couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps it had been a shield, a way to hide from the expectations that came with the roles they were supposed to fill. He recalled their one meeting with Mia's parents, how meticulously they had prepared for it. Catherine had scrutinized his every move, her gaze lingering on his untucked shirt and the scuffed shoes he'd worn to impress her. She'd asked him pointed questions about his job, her tone suggesting she found his choice of career less than desirable. At the time, Elliot had shrugged it off, telling himself that she was just a product of her own upbringing. But now, the memory stung like lemon juice on a paper cut. Had she been trying to drive them apart all along? Elliot sat in the library, his mind racing with the implications of Rachel's revelation. The very fabric of their relationship felt like it was unraveling before his eyes. He'd always felt that he and Mia were a team, united by their shared values and goals. They'd both come from traditional families, but had found solace in their mutual belief in equality and partnership. They turned their backs on the expectations of their parents and built a life that was uniquely theirs, or so he'd thought. The memory of their first dinner with Mia's parents was etched in his mind. Catherine had been icy, her eyes sharp as she dissected his every word. The conversation had been strained, with her questions about his job at the startup feeling more like accusations than genuine interest. Mia had tried to smooth things over, her laughter a bit too loud, her smiles a bit too forced. He'd chalked it up to nerves, but now he saw it as the first sign of trouble. Elliot's thoughts turned to the bad label Catherine had apparently bestowed upon him. It echoed through his mind, a relentless taunt that whispered of inadequacy. He'd always seen his financial equality with Mia as a sign of respect, a declaration of their partnership. But now, he wondered if it had just been another way he'd failed to meet Catherine's expectations. In her world, a man was supposed to provide, to take charge, and his modern approach had likely read as weakness.
I just don't think it's going to work out, Elliot, Mia said, her voice a soft melody that seemed out of place in the bustling cafe. Her words hit him like a cold, hard reboot, unexpected and jarring. The warmth of their shared laughter and the comfort of their familiar routines vanished in an instant, leaving a void that the aroma of freshly ground coffee could not fill. Elliot felt the weight of the world crushing down on him, the very air in the room thick with unspoken truths. Differences? He echoed, trying to process the sudden shift. What do you mean by that, Mia? His voice was steady, but he could feel the cracks forming, threatening to shatter the facade of calm he'd built over their time together. Mia fidgeted with her hands, avoiding his gaze. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling beneath her sweater, and finally spoke. I don't know. It's just. Things feel different lately. We've grown apart, I guess. Elliot's heart sank. The cafe's chatter grew distant as he searched her eyes for some sign of regret, some hint that this was a mistake. But all he found was a sad resolve that mirrored his own. He knew that beneath her evasive words, Mia was trying to spare his feelings. Maybe we need to talk about those differences, he offered, desperation creeping into his voice. We can work on it, right? Mia's eyes searched the room, as if the answers might be scribbled on a forgotten napkin. I've been thinking about this for a while, she said, finally meeting his gaze. It's not just one thing, it's a lot of things. Elliot felt a knot tighten in his stomach. All their shared jokes, the quiet nights and watching movies, the comfort of her head on his shoulder, it all felt like it was slipping away. He knew he couldn't force her to stay, but he had to understand. "Could you tell me what some of those things are?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. Mia paused, her eyes misting over. She took another deep breath and spoke. "It's not just the little things, Elliot. It's like, I don't know who you are anymore. You're always at work, or on your laptop, or you just seem so distant." She paused again, her voice barely a whisper. "I need someone who's present." The cafe's ambience grew louder as the silence between them stretched. Elliot felt a pang of guilt. He had been working long hours at the tech startup, trying to impress his new colleagues, but it had taken a toll on their relationship. He'd been so focused on his job that he'd neglected the woman who'd been by his side since college. "Mia," he began, "I had no idea you felt this way." His hand reached for hers, but she kept her arms folded tightly across her chest. "I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you, I promise." Her eyes searched his, looking for sincerity or perhaps just for the Elliot she used to know. "It's not just about the time, Elliot," she said softly. "It's about us connecting. We used to share everything, our hopes, our fears, even the silliest jokes. Now it's just, I don't know." The sadness in her voice was a punch to the gut, but he knew he had to try. "I'll be better, I'll make more of an effort." His hand reached out again, and this time, she let it enfold hers, though her grip remained tentative. Days later, the echoes of their conversation still lingered as Elliot found himself in a quiet corner of the university library, surrounded by the familiar scent of old books and the soft hum of students typing away on their keyboards. It was there that he stumbled upon a revelation that shook him to his core. He'd bumped into Rachel, a mutual friend from their alma mater, and she'd slipped him the news. Mia's mother, Catherine, had been working behind the scenes, sowing doubt and dissent. "Kathy said some things, man," Rachel had whispered, her voice low with concern. "Things that I don't think Mia wanted me to tell you, but I thought you should know. She said you were bad for her, that Mia could do better." The words hung in the air, a heavy fog that obscured the path ahead. Elliot couldn't believe it. Catherine had always been cool towards him, but he'd never thought it was more than just a typical mother's protective instincts. He replayed their one meeting in his mind, her sharp eyes scrutinizing his jeans and t-shirt, the way she'd questioned his job security at the tech startup. He'd shrugged it off, thinking it was just her way of sizing him up, but now, the doubt began to creep in. Had he misread the whole situation? He thought back to all the times he and Mia had gone out of their way to split every bill, down to the last cent. It was a testament to their belief in equality, a principle they held dear. They'd even joked about it, calling it their financial plan. But now, he wondered if it was all just a facade, a way to appease Catherine without truly committing to the traditional roles she expected of him.
His chest tightened as he considered the possibility that his very essence was at odds with what Catherine thought a man should be. Had his refusal to conform to her traditional views of masculinity been the catalyst for their downfall? He thought back to the times he'd offered to pay, only to be met with Mia's insistence on splitting the bill. Had those moments been a silent battleground, where his love and respect for Mia's independence had collided with Catherine's vision of the man her daughter deserved? The more Elliot pondered, the more the bad label grew in his mind, a shadow threatening to overtake the light of their shared past. It whispered that his efforts to treat Mia as an equal were misguided, that he was less of a partner and more of a burden. The very thought of it made him feel sick. He'd always prided himself on being a modern man, one who didn't adhere to archaic gender roles. But now, as the doubt grew, he found himself questioning the very core of who he was. With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and opened an anonymous forum he frequented, a place where people from all walks of life shared their stories and sought advice. He typed out a post, detailing the breakup and the revelation about Catherine's disapproval. He ended with a question that seemed to weigh 1,000 tons. Does splitting bills with your partner make you a bad person? Do men still have to be the providers to be considered worthy? He hit send and waited, his heart racing with each passing second. The replies began trickling in, a cacophony of digital whispers in the vastness of cyberspace. At first, the responses were a blur, a jumble of words that offered no solace. But as he read through them, the tone began to shift. There were messages of support, of understanding, of shared experiences. People praised his dedication to equality, his willingness to challenge the status quo. A sense of camaraderie grew with each comment, a gentle warmth that began to melt the icy doubt that had settled in his chest. One user, a woman named Equal Partner, wrote, "Elliot, it's not about who pays the bill. It's about the intention behind it. If you're both happy with your arrangement, then that's what matters. Don't let anyone else define what makes you a good person." Another, Fair Play, chimed in with, "Congrats on being a real partner, not just a wallet. You're setting a great example." And then there was The Observer, who said, "It sounds like your ex's mother has a very narrow view of the world. It's her loss, not yours." The comments continued to roll in, each one offering a glimmer of hope amidst the gloom. People shared stories of their own relationships, the trials they'd faced in the quest for true partnership. Some had encountered similar opposition from their significant others' families, while others had grown closer despite their differences. Each post was a testament to the belief that love didn't have to conform to outdated societal norms. One comment, from a user named Wise Wolf, stood out to Elliot. "Your worth isn't defined by someone else's narrow view, especially not a potential mother-in-law. Stand firm in your convictions. If Mia can't see that, maybe she's not the one." The words hit him like a sledgehammer, but there was a ring of truth to them that resonated deep within his core. Another user, Honest Heart, shared a similar sentiment. "Remember, you're not just fighting for yourself, but for every couple who believes in a partnership of equals. Don't let someone else's fear of change bring you down." Elliot felt his spirits rise slightly, bolstered by the digital camaraderie. A few more comments rolled in, each one offering a new perspective, a different angle on the situation. Balance in Love wrote, "Your ex's mother's views are a relic of the past. You're part of the future she's afraid of." It was as if each person's words were a thread, weaving together a tapestry of understanding that began to cover the gaping hole in his heart. One reply stood out from the rest. It was from Just in Time. He spoke of his own experience with a partner whose family had disapproved of his non-traditional ways. "They thought I was a mooch because I didn't make more than my girlfriend," he wrote. "But she knew better. She knew I was there for her, not for the money." In the end, it was their loss. The simplicity of Justin's words resonated with Elliot, cutting through the fog of doubt. Another user, Bitter End, offered a stark contrast. "You're setting yourself up for failure, buddy," he wrote. "Women like to be taken care of, and if you're not willing to be the man, someone else will." The comment stung, a cruel reminder of the stereotypes that still lingered. But it was the minority. Most of the responses were a chorus of encouragement, telling Elliot that he was on the right path, that true partnership was about more than just money. Amidst the supportive voices, there were also those who questioned Mia's intentions. "Could she have been using you?" wondered cautious optimist. "Maybe she was just waiting for you to be the breadwinner she wanted all along." The doubt grew stronger, a serpent coiling around his heart. Was it possible that Mia had been playing him? That their entire relationship was a facade, a means to an end? "You're not a real man if you can't provide," spat one user named Traditional Tony. Another, Mona Lisa Smile, quipped, "Maybe if you had more to offer, she wouldn't have left you." The barbs pierced his self-esteem, leaving him to question everything he thought he knew about himself and his relationship with Mia. But amidst the vitriol, there were whispers of empathy. "I went through something similar," shared Healing Heart. "It's tough, but you're not alone." The words of solidarity grew louder. A chorus of, "Hang in there," and, "You're doing the right thing," began to drown out the naysayers. Feeling slightly bolstered, Elliot decided to seek counsel from the one person who'd always been in his corner, his best friend, Lucas. They met at their usual haunt, a dimly lit bar with a jukebox that seemed to hold the secrets of every heartache in town. Lucas listened, his eyes never leaving Elliot's, as he recounted the conversation with Rachel and the weight of Catherine's disapproval. "You know what, man?" Lucas said after a moment, his voice cutting through the clinking of glasses and low murmurs of the bar. "I think it's about control. Mia's mom can't stand the idea of her daughter with someone who doesn't fit into her neat little box of expectations. She probably sees you as a threat. Elliot took a sip of his beer, the cool liquid a stark contrast to the fire in his chest. But we had a good thing, he murmured, the words tasting bitter. Why would she want to ruin it? Lucas leaned in, his gaze intense. You're not the one she's worried about ruining, Elliot. It's her own vision of what Mia's life should be like. Parents can be like that. They get these ideas in their heads, and nothing you do will ever be good enough. He paused, his eyes searching Elliot's face. Remember Becky? Elliot nodded, the memory of his friend's tumultuous breakup with his ex-girlfriend, Becky, coming into sharp focus. Her family had been the definition of overbearing, and it had taken Lucas months to recover from their constant meddling. But what if she's right? Elliot said, his voice barely audible over the jukebox. What if Mia does need someone more traditional? Lucas leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving Elliot's. You know better than that, he replied firmly. Mia chose you for who you are, not for who her mother wants you to be. And if she can't see that, then maybe it's time to let her go. Elliot nodded, the weight of Lucas's words sinking in. He knew his friend was right. His relationship with Mia had never been about money or status. It had been about love and connection, about two people navigating the complexities of life together. But what if she starts to believe it? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. Lucas squeezed his shoulder. Then you fight for her, man. You show her that you're worth more than her mother's narrow-minded view of the world. You remind her of the person she fell in love with, the one who treated her as an equal. He took a swig of his beer, the ice cubes clinking against the glass. But you can't do that if you don't believe it yourself. Elliot nodded slowly, the cogs in his mind turning as he digested Lucas's advice. The jukebox played a sad tune in the background, a mournful melody that seemed to underscore his tumultuous emotions. He knew his friend was right. It was time to take stock of what he truly believed in and hold onto it with everything he had. Leaving the bar, he walked through the cool night air, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. When he got home, he opened his laptop and dove into the vast ocean of information that was the internet. He scoured article after article, each one shedding light on the stark contrast between the generational views on relationships and finances. The words on the screen seemed to come alive, telling tales of a time where the man was the undisputed breadwinner, and the woman managed the home. Elliot read about the shift towards financial equality in modern romances, the rise of dual-income households and shared responsibilities. The statistics were clear. Younger generations were redefining what it meant to be in a partnership, focusing on shared dreams and ambitions rather than traditional gender roles. Mia's mother, Catherine, was a product of her era, where a man's worth was measured by his ability to provide. Elliot understood that, but it didn't make the sting of her disapproval any less painful. As he scrolled through article after article, he began to see their relationship through a new lens, a traditionalist's lens. The very things that had brought him and Mia closer, their shared beliefs and values, were the same things that had driven a wedge between him and Catherine. He read about the evolution of marriage from a financial contract to a partnership of equals. It was a shift that had taken decades, centuries even, and not everyone had caught up. The statistics were stark. Younger generations, particularly millennials and Gen Z, were twice as likely to believe in financial equality within a relationship. The world was changing, and while he and Mia were a testament to that progress, Catherine remained steadfast in her traditional views. The articles spoke of the provider archetype that men of her generation had been raised to embody. It was an expectation so deeply ingrained that it was difficult for some to accept anything else. Elliot's mind raced as he thought about his own upbringing, his parents' subtle nods to traditional roles, despite their insistence on raising him to be an open-minded individual. He realized that he had been navigating a minefield of expectations without even knowing it. The statistics were eye-opening, showing a stark contrast between generations. Younger couples were twice as likely to split bills, share household responsibilities, and prioritize partnership over patriarchy. The very fabric of what it meant to be in a relationship was being rewoven before their eyes, and Catherine was holding on to the frayed ends of the past. Elliot sat back in his chair, the glow of his laptop casting eerie shadows across the room. He couldn't help but feel like he'd been living in a bubble, oblivious to the currents of societal change that had been shaping the lives of those around him. It was a revelation that both enlightened and frustrated him. How could he have missed the signs? How could he have been so naive? The articles painted a picture of a world where love was often tangled in a web of expectations and familial pressures. A world where the very act of splitting a bill could be seen as a declaration of war against traditional values. His stomach churned as he read about the generational gap in perceptions of masculinity, the silent struggle of men like him trying to navigate the uncharted waters of equality. Elliot's research led him to forums where others shared their experiences, stories of partnerships torn apart by family interference, of hearts broken by the weight of societal norms. He found himself scrolling through page after page, seeking solace in the digital confessions of strangers who had faced similar battles. Each tale was a mirror reflecting his own fears and insecurities, a stark reminder that he wasn't alone in this fight. The more he read, the more he understood the depth of the generational chasm that existed between him and Catherine. Her world was one of clear-cut roles and expectations, where a man's worth was measured by his paycheck and his ability to provide. It was a stark contrast to the modern love story he'd been crafting with Mia, one built on mutual respect and shared dreams. Feeling a newfound determination, Elliot decided to channel his emotions into action. He took out an old notebook and began to write, not about the hurtful words or the painful memories, but about himself. He listed his strengths, his coding skills that had earned him respect in the tech world, his unwavering faith that had seen him through tough times, his commitment to fairness that had guided their relationship. Each word was a declaration of self-worth, a rebuttal to Catherine's silent accusations. As he wrote, the anger and doubt began to give way to clarity. He saw himself not as the man Catherine had judged, but as the partner Mia had chosen. Someone who valued her for her own merits, not just as an extension of his own ego. The breakup, though still a fresh wound, now felt like a release from the grip of someone else's narrow expectations. He didn't have to be the provider she envisioned, he could be the partner Mia needed, the one she had chosen. The words flowed onto the page, a declaration of independence from the archaic ideals that had shackled him for too long. His strengths grew more defined with each line, his ability to listen, to understand, to support Mia's own aspirations. He didn't need to be a traditional breadwinner to be a good man. He could be the rock she leaned on, the voice of reason when she was lost in her own thoughts, the hand that held hers through the storms of life. The jukebox's melancholic tunes seemed to echo his newfound resolve. The digital whispers of encouragement had planted a seed in his soul, one that grew into a mighty oak of self-assurance. Elliot felt a shift within him, a reawakening of his self-worth that had been bruised by Catherine's judgment. He was more than a paycheck, he was a partner, a lover, a friend. Walking home, the cool night air kissed his flushed cheeks, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked asphalt. The streetlights cast a warm glow over the sidewalks, and Elliot felt as if each step brought him closer to understanding. His heart was still raw, but there was a newfound strength in his stride. The house was dark and quiet when he arrived, a stark contrast to the cacophony of thoughts in his head. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and introspection. He threw himself into his projects, finding solace in the predictability of code, the binary world where everything had an answer, a solution. It was at one such tech meetup, a gathering of like-minded souls seeking to reshape the digital landscape, that he met her. Her name was Sarah, a UX designer with a sharp intellect and a smile that could illuminate the darkest of screens. Her eyes lit up when he talked about his work, and she met his every argument with a well-crafted rebuttal, sprinkled with humor. The conversation flowed as easily as a perfectly optimized user interface, touching on everything from the ethics of artificial intelligence to the merits of a good sci-fi novel. They found themselves at the cafe adjacent to the meetup, the aroma of freshly ground coffee beans and the gentle hum of the espresso machine a soothing backdrop to their geeky banter. When it came time to pay, she reached for her wallet with the same ease that she had when discussing quantum computing, and he felt a warmth spread through his chest. "Let's split it," she suggested, her eyes gleaming with a mischievous spark. I know how much that must annoy the traditionalists. Elliot couldn't help but chuckle at the way she'd so casually tossed out the words. It was refreshing, like a gust of wind in a room that had grown stale with the heavy scent of expectations. He nodded, pulling out his wallet. "Fair's fair," he said, matching her grin. As they waited for their change, Sarah leaned in, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "So, you're into the whole gender equality thing, huh?" she asked, her voice a soft purr that made him feel as if they were sharing a secret. Elliot nodded, feeling a blush creep up his neck. "Yeah," he said, his voice a little too loud in the quiet cafe. "It's important to me that my partner feels valued for who they are, not just what they can provide." Sarah's smile widened, her eyes sparkling with a shared understanding. "It's like we're speaking the same language," she said, her voice a warm melody that seemed to resonate with every fiber of his being. "My last boyfriend couldn't handle the fact that I made more than him. It was like I'd committed some kind of cardinal sin." Elliot nodded, the memory of Catherine's disapproval still a fresh wound. "Some people can't get past the idea of a man not being the sole provider," he murmured, the weight of his words heavy in the air between them. Sarah's laugh was like a balm to his soul, a sweet sound that seemed to dispel the shadows of doubt. "Well, they can get left behind for all I care," she said, her voice a perfect blend of defiance and humor. "I've got my own bills to pay, and I don't need a man to do it for me." Elliot felt a spark of hope in his chest. Here was someone who understood, who didn't see his financial choices as a failure, but as a declaration of personal integrity. The conversation between them grew more relaxed, their shared experiences weaving a bond that felt surprisingly strong. They talked about their work, their aspirations, and their beliefs, each word a thread that knit their hearts closer together. Over the next few weeks, Elliot found himself spending more and more time with Sarah. They'd grab lunch after work, sharing stories over plates of Thai takeout, the sweet and spicy flavors of their food mirroring the complexities of their discussions. She listened intently when he spoke about his breakup with Mia, her eyes filled with empathy and understanding. "It's tough," she said one afternoon, her voice gentle as she picked at her pad thai. "But you're not wrong for wanting equality. In fact, it's incredibly brave of you to stand up for what you believe in." Elliot nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "It's just hard when you love someone, and you know their family can't see you the same way," he admitted. The words hung in the air, a poignant reminder of the battle he'd faced. Sarah reached across the table, her hand covering his. "I get it," she said softly. "But you can't let someone else's fear dictate your happiness." Elliot nodded, his eyes lingering on their joined hands. It was a simple gesture, yet it held a profound weight, a silent declaration of her support. He took a deep breath, feeling the tightness in his chest begin to ease. "Thank you," he murmured, the words barely a whisper. Their next encounter was unexpected, a chance meeting at a local bookstore. Mia's eyes widened when she saw him, her hand hovering over a dusty spine. For a moment, they stood frozen, the air charged with unspoken words. Then she took a step forward, her voice tentative. "Elliot, I need to talk to you." They found a quiet corner, surrounded by the whispers of pages and the faint scent of aged paper. She spoke first, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I'm sorry," she said, her eyes brimming with regret. "My mom, she had a lot to say about us. I know that's not an excuse, but I was torn. I believed in what we had, but the pressure." She took a deep, shuddering breath. Elliot felt the sting of her words, but he also felt something else, understanding. "It's okay," he said, his voice steady. "I get it, you were caught in the middle." Mia nodded, her eyes searching his. "I didn't want to lose you," she whispered. "But I couldn't fight them both." Elliot squeezed her hand gently. "It's okay," he said again. "You did what you thought was best." He meant it, the anger that had once consumed him now a distant memory. "But I need to know if you can truly support this," he continued, his gaze never wavering. "If we can't be on the same page about this, then—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what was at stake. Mia nodded, her eyes misty. "I know," she murmured. "And I do support it. I just didn't know how to tell her, how to stand up for us." She took a deep breath, her eyes searching his. Can you ever forgive me? The question hung in the air, as fragile as the dust motes dancing in the shaft of sunlight that pierced the bookstore's windows. Elliot felt the weight of their history, the joy and pain, the love and the loss. He knew that forgiveness was a complex beast, one that required time and understanding to tame. He took a deep breath, his gaze holding hers. "Mia," he said softly, "I understand that you were in a difficult position. I don't blame you for what happened. But we can't change the past." Mia's eyes searched his, hope flickering in their depths. "What are you saying?" Mia's eyes widened in shock, her hand reaching out to stop him. "Elliot, wait," she called after him, the urgency in her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. But he was already striding away, the scent of ink and paper fading behind him. The air grew thick with the weight of their words, the scent of dusty tomes and the faint whir of the air conditioning the only witnesses to their exchange. He felt the anger that had once consumed him begin to ebb away, replaced by a gentle warmth that spread through his veins like a healing balm. "Mia," Elliot said, his voice a soft caress that seemed to hang in the air. "I don't hate you. I could never hate you." Her eyes searched his, a silent plea for understanding. "But I need to move forward," he continued, his voice firm. "I need to be with someone who sees me as an equal, not as a paycheck." Her cheeks flushed, and she looked away, her gaze landing on the bookshelves that had borne silent witness to their tumultuous relationship. "I saw you with her," she said finally, her voice laced with accusation. "Sarah, you were holding hands." Elliot felt the blood drain from his face. "Mia," he began, his voice a mix of surprise and defensiveness, "it's not what it looks like." "Oh, really?" she spat, her eyes narrowed into slits. "What's it supposed to look like, then? You've been parading around town with that gold digger." Elliot's temper flared, the heat of it burning through his veins like a raging forest fire. "Mia, you don't get to define who I see or what we are," he shot back, his voice a thunderclap in the quiet library. "You're the one who left me, remember?" Mia's eyes flashed with anger, her fists clenching at her sides. "You think I don't know that?" she hissed, her voice a serpent's hiss. "But you didn't have to replace me so quickly." Elliot's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing into slits. "Replace you?" he echoed, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "Sarah and I are friends, nothing more." Mia's voice grew shriller with each syllable. "Friends don't hold hands, Elliot," she spat, her eyes flashing with fury. "Or do you just hold hands with everyone who agrees with your modern views?" Elliot felt the sting of her accusation, his own temper flaring in response. "You have no right to judge me," he said, his voice a low growl. "You're the one who left me to deal with your mother's toxic opinions." Mia's eyes blazed with fury. "You think you're so superior," she snarled, her words echoing off the bookshelves. "But all you're doing is running to the first woman who agrees with you." Elliot's own anger bubbled to the surface, a volcano of words and emotion. "How dare you?" he thundered, his voice bouncing off the library walls. "You're the one who didn't stand up for us, who let your mother's opinions dictate our relationship." Mia's cheeks grew redder, her eyes glittering with unshed tears. "My mother was just looking out for me," she shot back. "You think you're so perfect, but you're just using me as a pawn in your little game of social justice." Elliot felt his own fury ignite at her words. "I'm not playing games," he retorted, his voice rising. "I'm fighting for what's right." Mia's eyes were stormy with emotion. "Right for who?" she demanded. "You or your new friends online?" Elliot's grip on the library book tightened, the paperback cover creasing under his fingertips. "This isn't about me," he ground out. "It's about us, about our future together. You can't expect me to abandon my beliefs just to please your mother." Mia's voice grew shaky, the veneer of her composure cracking. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You don't know what it's like to have your entire world revolve around family, to have their expectations weigh on you like a boulder." Elliot's eyes flashed with frustration. "I've tried to understand," he shot back. "But you can't keep using that as an excuse for not taking a stand. I need you to be strong for us, not just for your mother." Mia stepped back as if slapped, her hand flying to her mouth. "How can you say that?" she choked out. "You've never had to deal with the pressure I've faced." Elliot's eyes searched hers, his anger a living, breathing entity between them. And you've never had to deal with being told you're not enough, just because you don't fit into a mold that society has set for you, he shot back, the words cutting through the air like shards of glass. Mia took a step back, her eyes wide with shock. Elliot, she whispered, her voice a trembling leaf in a storm. I can't do this, he said, his voice a ragged whisper. I can't keep fighting for something you won't even try to understand. He turned away from her, the library's quiet suddenly a deafening roar in his ears. The weight of their argument hung heavy in the air, a tangible presence that seemed to cling to every book and chair. Elliot striding towards the exit, the echo of his footsteps a rhythmic beat that matched the pounding of his heart. He couldn't bear to look at her, to see the hurt and anger reflected in her eyes. Mia watched him go, her chest heaving with sobs she'd been trying to hold back. Her eyes burned with unshed tears as she realized the depth of her own feelings. The words she'd flung at him, filled with accusation and pain, had come from a place of fear and doubt. She didn't want to lose him, didn't want to watch him walk away into the arms of someone else. In the weeks that followed, Elliot found himself drawn to a podcast that spoke to his soul. It discussed the global shifts in relationships, the ways in which young couples were moving away from traditional gender roles and towards a more egalitarian approach to finances. A study from 2024 was cited, stating that a whopping 68% of them now split expenses. The host spoke with a gentle authority, sharing stories of love and resilience in the face of societal and familial pressure. Each episode was like a balm to his bruised heart, validating his own experience and making him feel less alone. The podcast highlighted how family disapproval often clashed with these modern ideals, a theme that resonated deeply with him. As he listened, Elliot felt a newfound sense of belonging. He wasn't just fighting for himself and Mia, he was part of a larger movement that was redefining what love and worth looked like. The podcast host, a soft-spoken yet powerful advocate for gender equality, shared stories of other couples who had faced similar challenges. They spoke candidly about the hurdles they'd overcome, the societal norms they'd shattered, and the beautiful, balanced relationships they'd built on the other side of the storm. Each story felt like a beacon of hope, a testament to the strength of love in the face of adversity. Elliot found himself binge-listening to episode after episode, the soothing voice of the host acting as a salve to his raw emotions. He took notes, scribbling down quotes and statistics that resonated with his own experiences. The podcast was a lifeline, a source of solace and inspiration that fueled his resolve to stand firm in his beliefs. A year later, Elliot had not only survived the storm but had also thrived. His career in tech had taken off, his innovative ideas earning him recognition and promotions. The office was his playground, a place where he could flex his intellectual muscles and build something meaningful alongside like-minded individuals who saw beyond the confines of gender roles. Sarah had become a constant in his life, not just as a colleague but as a partner in the truest sense of the word. They'd started casually dating, their shared beliefs in financial equality forming the bedrock of their relationship. Her family had embraced him with open arms, their dinner conversations a delightful tapestry of modern ideals and laughter. There was a comfort in her family's acceptance, a stark contrast to the tension that had once choked the air during his interactions with Mia's mother.